My name is Marilyn Brooks, and if you'd asked anyone in Maple Falls, Oregon, they'd tell you I was just your typical retired school secretary. Quiet, dependable, the kind of woman who baked zucchini bread for the neighbors and never forgot a birthday. I lived in a modest two-bedroom home, drove the same dusty Ford sedan I'd had for nearly 15 years, and kept a careful eye on every dollar of my pension. I wasn't rich, not even close, but I managed, and I was content with that. Until Lauren, my only daughter, got married. Lauren was the kind of girl who made you proud just by standing in a room. She had her father's confidence and my soft heart. So when she fell in love with Matt, a firefighter from Portland, and they decided to start a life together, I didn't hesitate. I wanted to help them. That's what mothers do, right? We give. We patch the holes. We show up even when no one asks. It started small. A little extra money here and there. $200 to help cover their electric bill during a brutal winter, $150 when their water heater busted, then a couple hundred more for car repairs. I didn't wait for them to ask. I offered. Lauren always said, "Are you sure, Mom?" But I could see the relief in her eyes when I said yes. That look, that mix of gratitude and exhaustion, made it easy to say yes every time. Then came the baby. When little Ethan arrived, everything changed. The expenses multiplied overnight. Formula, diapers, doctor visits, daycare. I could hear the strain in Lauren's voice every time we talked, even though she tried to hide it. So one day, without telling her in advance, I started sending them $5,000 a month. It wasn't pocket change, not for me. That money came straight from my retirement. I canceled my cable. I stopped going out to eat. I bought day-old bread and picked up dented cans from the clearance rack. But I told myself it was worth it. I was helping my daughter build a life. I was giving my grandson a better start. Each month, like clockwork, the bank confirmed the wire transfer. $5,000. No fanfare, no thank you cards. Just the quiet reassurance that they were okay. That maybe, just maybe, I still mattered. My friends didn't get it. "Marilyn," they'd say, "you're too generous for your own good. Don't you think Matt should be pulling his weight more?" I'd laugh it off. "It's not about keeping score," I'd reply. "They're my family. As long as they're safe and cared for, that's all that matters." But sometimes, late at night, after I'd turned off the kitchen light and was sipping tea by the window, I wondered if I was doing too much. If maybe, just maybe, they were getting used to it. Still, I never stopped. When they needed help with the down payment on their home, a sweet 3-bedroom in the suburbs just outside Beaverton, I emptied most of my savings. Matt's parents had already chipped in for the wedding, so I told myself it was only fair. I even borrowed $10,000 from my cousin Diane to help make the numbers work. It was exhausting. But the day they signed the papers and got the keys, Lauren hugged me with tears in her eyes. "Mom," she whispered, "this is your home too. You come whenever you want. That guest room by the window? It's yours." Matt stood beside her and nodded. "You're always welcome here, Marilyn. Always." I held on to those words like they were stitched into my skin. And over the years, I made good on the invitation. I'd visit every few months, never staying long, just enough to help with the baby, cook a few meals, and make sure they were doing okay. Every visit was polite, kind, but something had shifted. Matt became quieter around me, more distant. Lauren stopped asking how I was doing. Instead, she talked about Ethan's school, their car payments, the rising mortgage, the gas bill, and I kept sending the money. $5,000. Every month, like a ritual. Even when my furnace broke and I had to live with space heaters for 2 weeks, I still sent the money. When my health insurance premium spiked, I didn't blink. When I skipped my annual trip to the Oregon coast with the girls from the church quilting group, I told myself, it's okay, they need it more. But deep down, I wondered, was I still a mother helping her child? Or had I become something else, an ATM with a warm voice and a fading memory? Still, I never brought it up, because love, I believed, meant sacrifice. And who was I if not a mother who loved her daughter with everything she had? It was the second week of December when I decided I'd spend Christmas at Lauren and Matt's place that year. I hadn't seen Ethan in person since late summer. He was growing like a weed, judging from the blurry pictures Lauren occasionally sent over text. And for once, I wanted to feel the warmth of a full house again, the chaos, the laughter, the smell of cinnamon and pine in the air. I didn't say much about my plans. I just quietly started preparing. 2 weeks ahead, I dug my biggest suitcase out of the closet. I picked out a soft flannel dinosaur pajama set for Ethan. He'd love it. For Lauren, I bought a gray cashmere wrap from a little boutique in town, one she had admired in a photo I sent months ago. As for Matt, I ordered a specialty coffee sampler from a roaster in Bend, complete with a French press and 2 ceramic mugs. I even baked a batch of cranberry orange cookies and wrapped them carefully in wax paper. I was humming to myself while folding sweaters when the phone rang. It was Lauren. "Hey, Mom," she said, but something in her voice felt off, forced. "Everything okay?" I asked. There was a pause, too long. "Yeah, I was just wondering, did you already book your ticket for Christmas?" "I did," I said, suddenly uneasy. "Is something wrong?" There was a shuffle on the line. "Matt wants to talk to you for a minute." Before I could respond, he was already on the phone. "Hi, Marilyn," he said. His tone was friendly, but it was the kind of friendliness people used when they were about to deliver bad news. I gripped the phone a little tighter. "So, this Christmas might not be the best time for a visit." It landed like a slap I didn't see coming. "What?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. "Did something happen?" No, he replied quickly, as if brushing away the question. "It's just, my parents are coming to stay this year. They're getting older, light sleepers, need their own space. We only have 3 bedrooms, and with Lauren, Ethan, and me in one, and my mom and dad needing separate rooms." His words blurred together like snow piling up on a windshield, light then heavy. I blinked. "I can sleep on the couch," I offered, heart pounding. "Really, I don't mind. I just want to be with you all. It's the holidays." There was silence on his end. I had caught him off guard. Then he cleared his throat. "It's just that the house is going to be really full. And, well, we were hoping for some quiet time. You know, just the 3 of us. We've both been really stressed lately. Work's been non-stop. Quiet time. That was it. I wasn't part of the equation anymore. I swallowed hard. "Let me talk to Lauren." The phone rustled. Then her voice came on again, soft, unsure. "Mom, please don't be upset. It's just, things are complicated right now. His parents already bought their flights, and it's been a rough couple of months. Maybe you could visit another time?" She never said, "Don't come," but she didn't have to. The message was clear. I held my breath, then forced out a quiet, "All right. I understand." When I hung up, the silence in my little house wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. I turned and stared at the suitcase by the door, 2/3 packed, full of wrapped gifts, neatly folded clothes, and memories I thought we were still building. I sat down and didn't move for a long time. My eyes stayed locked on the cashmere scarf I had so carefully chosen for Lauren. Now it felt like a gift for a stranger. I kept hearing Matt's voice. "My parents are visiting. They each need their own room." But what about me? The woman who paid the down payment on that very house? The one who sends $5,000 every single month to help cover that mortgage, groceries, insurance? I offered to sleep on the couch. I would have slept on the floor. I would have taken anything just to be there with them. And yet, they shut the door. That night, I barely slept. I lay in bed wondering when I had become a guest in the life I helped build, a visitor in the family I sacrificed everything for. And for the first time in decades, I felt something strange and unfamiliar settle into my bones. Not anger, not grief, just cold, a quiet, aching cold that had nothing to do with the weather. The next morning, I woke up to the same gray Oregon sky, but something inside me had changed. The air in my house felt heavier than usual, as if it too had heard that call and now sat in mourning with me. I walked past the suitcase near the door, still half-zipped and slumped like it had given up waiting. I didn't touch it. Instead, I shuffled into the kitchen, made myself a cup of instant coffee, and sat at the table staring out the window, watching rain collect on the sill. Was I really not welcome anymore? It wasn't the rejection that stunned me the most. It was how easily it came, how effortless it was for Matt to craft that excuse, how Lauren just let it happen. No pushback, no defense, no, "Mom, we'll make it work." And suddenly I began to question everything. I thought back to the day they bought the house. Lauren had cried, her arms wrapped tight around my neck. "You made this possible, Mom," she said. "This will always be your home, too." Matt had nodded silently beside her, his usual quiet demeanor firm and polite. "You'll always have a place here, Marilyn." "Always," they said, but always was beginning to feel like a lease that expired when my usefulness ran out. My thoughts swirled like leaves in a storm. I remembered the hundreds of little sacrifices I had made. When Lauren was pregnant and too sick to stand, I'd moved into their tiny apartment for 3 months, cooked her bland meals, rubbed her back while she threw up, washed her hair over the sink when she was too weak to shower. I'd been there for every milestone and meltdown. When Ethan was born, I was the one pacing the floor at 3 a.m., whispering lullabies into the soft hair of a wailing newborn so they could sleep. I didn't complain, not once. I didn't ask for repayment. I didn't expect praise. But I did assume that the love I gave so freely meant I had a place with them. Clearly, I was wrong. That realization settled on me like snowfall, light at first, then accumulating, inch by painful inch. Sometime around noon, I picked up my phone and opened a message thread with Casey, Matt's niece. I barely knew the girl. We met once during a 4th of July cookout, but I remembered her being chatty and warm, the kind of person who shared too much too easily. I hesitated, then typed a message, trying to sound casual. "Hey Casey, do you know if Matt's parents are traveling for the holidays this year? I was thinking of inviting them over if they're not doing anything." I waited. 30 minutes later, she replied, "Hi, Marilyn. Oh, they're heading to Matt and Lauren's for Christmas. Whole family's getting together before they leave for Hawaii next week. Can you believe it?" Number, I couldn't believe it. I stared at the screen as the truth crystallized. There was never a lack of space. Never a shortage of rooms, just a shortage of willingness. They didn't want me there. And instead of saying it, they wrapped it in layers of polite deception and handed me a lie dressed like concern. My hand began to tremble, not from age, but from fury. All those months, all those years, the money, the time, the energy, all the pieces of myself I had poured into them, so freely, so blindly. I didn't deserve this. No one deserved this. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter until my knuckles went white. And that's when I made my decision. That month's $5,000 wire transfer? I wasn't sending it, not out of revenge, not out of spite, but because something inside me had snapped quietly, like the final thread in a worn-out sweater, and what remained was not bitterness, but clarity. They had shown me who I was to them, not family, not foundation, just funding. So I stopped. When the bank notification popped up a few days later, "Your scheduled transfer is ready," I simply swiped it away. I didn't text Lauren. I didn't offer an explanation. I didn't even feel the need to justify it. I just let it go. And in that silence, something unexpected happened. I didn't feel guilt. I felt peace. For the first time in years, I didn't spend the morning worrying about someone else's bills. I didn't obsess over whether they were okay. I sat on my porch with a hot cup of coffee, wrapped in a thick cardigan, watching the clouds roll across the sky like slow gray waves. I was alone. But I wasn't lost. I was starting to come back to myself, and in that stillness I realized this wasn't the end of something. It was the start of something new. 5 days passed. No calls, no texts, no Merry Christmas, nothing. I spent Christmas Eve at home alone for the first time in my life. I didn't light the candles on the windowsill. I didn't bake. I didn't put on the holiday sweater Ethan once said made me look like a snowman. I just sat quietly with a hot mug of peppermint tea, letting the silence speak where words had failed. Then, on the evening of the 5th day, after what would have been the usual transfer date, My phone rang. Lauren. Her name glowed on the screen like a knock at a door I wasn't sure I wanted to answer. I hesitated, fingers hovering, heart strangely still. Then I picked up. "Hi, Mom," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. Too sweet, like she was walking on eggshells. "How are you feeling? It's gotten really cold lately. Make sure you're bundling up, okay?" "I'm fine," I said flatly. She paused, clearly hoping for more. When none came, she continued, her voice skating across small talk like it was ice she didn't want to crack. She asked about the oak tree near my street, whether the coffee shop downstairs was still open, if I was still crocheting. Then it came. "Oh, by the way, Mom, did you forget to send this month's money?" There it was, the real reason for the call. I let the silence stretch just long enough to sting. Then, "I didn't forget." Her voice went still. I could feel the tension bleeding through the phone. "I was just thinking," I continued calmly, "with the holidays and all, your in-laws being around, and the fact that you and Matt seem to be doing well enough to exclude me, maybe you don't need my $5,000. Her silence was deafening. "And you were right," I added, my voice now cool, crisp. "I am the outsider now, always interfering. Doesn't feel right to keep sending money if I'm not even worth a seat at your table." "Mom," she started, but I cut her off. "I'm done, Lauren." She gasped, just slightly. Then her voice, tight and thin, asked, "How could you do this? You know how hard this month has been? The mortgage, Ethan's school, our credit cards are maxed out. We're drowning, and now you cut us off?" I didn't answer. Because she remembered the mortgage. She remembered the bills. But she forgot who made that house possible. She forgot who paced the nursery at 2 a.m., whispering lullabies while she and Matt slept. She forgot that even when I had nothing, I gave everything. And all it took to erase that was one Christmas where I didn't open my wallet. Then Matt's voice boomed in the background. "Hannah, what the hell is this supposed to mean?" His voice cracked through the phone like a whip. "You're using money to manipulate us? That's what this is? Well, guess what? We don't need your guilt money. We never did." I said nothing, because there it was, the truth laid bare. No sugarcoating, no polite excuses, just raw, ugly resentment. Funny how quickly your family becomes you're a burden when the money stops flowing. I waited until his shouting slowed to ragged breathing before I spoke again. "You told me I was interfering, Matt. So I'm stepping out completely. There will be no more money, no more calls, no more showing up with gifts and casseroles. You and Lauren are free to live your life. Without me." He started to argue, but I hung up. Not in anger, not in drama, just done. The next few days were quiet. No texts, no apologies. Then one Friday evening, as the sky outside dimmed into deep charcoal, the doorbell rang. When I peeked through the peephole, Lauren was standing there. No makeup. Canvas bag slung over one shoulder, puffy coat zipped to her neck, eyes rimmed red. Shoulders slumped like the weight of the last 5 years had finally caught up to her. She didn't knock again. She just stood there. I opened the door. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice hoarse. I stepped aside. No smile, no questions, just space. She entered quietly. Didn't even take off her coat. Her eyes scanned the room as if she were expecting to see ghosts. "I can't do it anymore," she whispered. "I thought I could, but I can't." And then she broke. It didn't come in sobs. It came in pieces. Shaky words, trembling hands, a voice barely able to stay upright. "Matt lost his job. The credit cards are frozen. The mortgage is months behind. And when I asked him what we should do, he told me, 'You and your mother are both useless.'" I said nothing. She swallowed hard. "I'm not here to ask for money, Mom. I swear. I just didn't know where else to go. I don't even know who I am anymore." I looked at her, my daughter, now smaller than I'd ever seen her, and I knew that this was her bottom. And maybe, just maybe, that's where real change begins. Lauren stayed the night. She didn't bring much, just the same canvas bag and the clothes on her back. I offered her a pair of soft pajamas I had tucked away in a drawer years ago. She didn't say a word when I handed them over, just nodded, slipped into the bathroom, and closed the door behind her. That first night, the house was completely silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I laid out a blanket on the couch for her even though the guest room was ready. She never asked for it. Maybe she didn't think she deserved it. The next morning, she emerged quietly. Her face was pale and tired, but she looked lighter somehow, like someone who had finally put down a weight she'd been carrying too long. Over coffee, she didn't talk much, just watched the steam rise from her cup like it held all the words she couldn't say yet. I didn't push her. I wasn't that kind of mother anymore. I'd spent too many years leaping to fill every silence, to mend every crack before it showed. This time, I let the silence breathe. "I'm going to look for work," she finally said. "Something simple. I don't even care what it is. I just need to start somewhere." I nodded. "You should." She looked surprised, like she'd expected me to offer her cash or comfort. Instead, I handed her a list of businesses nearby that had hiring signs out front. "You'll figure it out." She smiled, just barely. But it was real. Later that week, I found her folding laundry and wiping down the counter without being asked. She didn't rifle through my fridge, didn't sigh about how I never kept anything good around, like she used to. She even asked, "Are you eating enough, Mom?" And when she did, I felt something stir. Something small but powerful. She saw me, not as a resource, not as a fallback, just as a person. And for once, that was enough. One night, after a long day of job hunting, she came home, collapsed into the armchair by the window, and said, "I've been applying to everything, cafes, bookstores, even a cashier job at the gas station. Most places ask if I have experience, and I just stare at them like a deer in headlights." She laughed, but there was no humor in it, just defeat. "I always thought I was a good mom," she continued quietly, "a decent wife, but now, without Matt or you, I don't know how to be anything on my own." I didn't say, "You'll be fine." I didn't pat her hand and tell her she was stronger than she thought. Instead, I said, "That's okay. You're allowed to start from zero. Just don't expect anyone else to do the work for you." She didn't argue. She nodded. And that was enough. A few days later, she brought up Ethan. "He's with Matt's mom right now," she said, staring down at her tea. "But I don't trust her. She lets him watch YouTube for hours and feeds him nothing but boxed mac and cheese. I think I'm going to bring him here." I nodded. "That's your decision. But if he's here, you're responsible. I'll help when I can. But I'm not stepping back into full-time childcare. That's not who I am anymore." She didn't flinch. "I understand. I won't treat you like a babysitter again." The words weren't dramatic or emotional, but they carried weight. Weight she hadn't been able to hold before. That weekend, she picked up Ethan and brought him back. He ran to me with open arms and whispered, "Grandma, I missed you." And for the first time in a long time, I felt joy without exhaustion. I hugged him tight but didn't cry. Because this time, I wasn't slipping back into old patterns. I was building something new. Lauren tucked him into bed that night, stayed up with him through a low-grade fever, rubbed his back the way I used to rub hers. I watched her from the hallway, quiet, steady, focused, not the girl who once relied on everyone else to carry her, but a mother learning to carry herself. That night, as she curled up on the couch, she asked softly, "Do you think I'm changing?" I thought for a long moment before answering. "You're trying. And that's more than you've done in a long time." She smiled, then added, "Thank you for letting me come back. I know I don't deserve it." I shook my head gently. "This isn't about what you deserve. This is about whether you're willing to work for something better. That's the only thing that matters now." She reached for my hand, not as a daughter begging to be saved, but as a woman reaching for steady ground. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't just a return. It was a rebirth, Spring came slowly that year. The snow outside my window melted in slow, uneven patches, revealing tired grass and cracked sidewalks. But inside me, something else was blooming. Lauren stayed for a few more weeks, not permanently, she made that clear, but long enough to catch her breath, find a part-time job at a second-hand furniture shop, and start paying her own way. She walked Ethan to school every morning and came home with tired feet and ink smudges on her hands. It wasn't glamorous, but it was hers. And for the first time, she stopped saying, "I'm sorry." Instead, she started saying, "Thank you." There was a kind of peace in that rhythm, two grown women learning how to exist beside each other without guilt, without debt, without old roles weighing us down. I didn't go back to being Mom the Savior. I stayed Marilyn, a woman with her own routines, her own quiet joy. I volunteered once a week at the community center, teaching sewing to a group of young mothers. I found myself laughing again, genuine, belly-deep laughter, over the crooked hems and mismatched buttons. The women called me Miss Marilyn, and when they said, "You're so patient," I smiled and believed them, because maybe for the first time in my life, I was finally patient, with others and with myself. One evening, while I was out on the balcony repotting a fern, Lauren leaned against the doorframe and said, "If you ever want to take a trip somewhere, I'd love to come with you." I looked up, wiped soil from my hands, and smiled. "If I want to go somewhere," I said, "I'll go, with or without company." She didn't take it as rejection. She just nodded and said, "I figured you'd say that." There was a hint of pride in her voice, like she was finally starting to understand who I was, not just what I'd done for her. A few weeks later, she told me she found an apartment near Ethan's school. Small, affordable, nothing fancy, but hers. She gave up her share of the old house, let Matt carry the burden alone. She didn't look back. She said, "You can visit whenever you want." I said, "I will, if I feel like it." And we both laughed. That day, as I stood at the doorway watching her and Ethan walk away, I didn't cry. I didn't feel empty. I felt whole. Because I wasn't sending her off to start over. I was standing still for the first time in decades, in a life that finally belonged to me. I went back inside, brewed a cup of tea, and sat by the window. The house was quiet, but not lonely, just mine. Looking back, I realize now this was never about cutting people off or being cruel. It was about untying knots that had been strangling me for years, knots made of guilt, obligation, and silence. I had spent so long believing that love meant sacrifice, that a good mother gave until she had nothing left, but now I understand something deeper. Love without boundaries isn't love, it's servitude. And I'm no longer in service to people who only remember me when they need something. I'm in service to myself. I don't know what the next season of my life will bring, but I know this. I will not beg to be included. I will not apologize for resting, and I will not trade my peace for someone else's convenience. I'm not a martyr. I'm not a bank. I'm not a second chance on demand. I am Marilyn Brooks. And for the years I have left, the first person I choose to love is me. There's a quiet truth many parents, especially those in their later years, eventually come to face. Kindness doesn't always guarantee gratitude. The story of Marilyn Brooks is more than just a tale of a mother being excluded from a home she helped build. It's a powerful reminder that love should never require self-erasure. For years, Marilyn gave her money, her time, her energy, without expecting anything in return. But when her presence was no longer convenient, she was quietly pushed aside. Her decision to stop giving wasn't rooted in bitterness. It was an awakening, a moment of clarity, not anger. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you love someone less. It means you finally learned to love yourself too. Healthy love is not about endless sacrifice. It's about balance, mutual respect, and the courage to say, "I matter too." We cannot pour from an empty cup, and yet so many people, especially mothers, keep giving, even as their own emotional wells run dry. The lesson here isn't to abandon the people we love, but rather to stop abandoning ourselves in the process. Family doesn't mean enduring disrespect or being valued only when you're useful. True family sees you, honors your presence, and doesn't confuse generosity with obligation. Marilyn's journey teaches us that it's never too late to take our lives back, to find meaning beyond the roles we've played for others, to understand that peace is not selfish, it's necessary. So if you've spent years giving, helping, and carrying others, ask yourself honestly, am I still giving out of love or out of fear that I won't be loved without it? If the answer hurts, then maybe it's time to come home to yourself, because you deserve more than to be remembered when you're needed. You deserve to be valued simply for being you. And sometimes the most radical act of love is finally choosing to stand in your own name, on your own terms.